Hey everyone, and welcome back to Master Your Life Beyond the Founder. I am your host, Luke Beestall, and I'm really excited today to be having a fellow UK guest join us in the studio. Now, I'm not going to go into too much depth because I think this is just going to be great to hit it straight from the off. But his story is, I would probably say, definitely not linear by any means, and probably not what people would ever think. ... Adrian, I'm just going to welcome you into the show. How are you doing today?
Yeah, hey, Luke. Thanks very much for having me. Excited to be here.
It's brilliant to have you on, and I'm so. I mean, obviously the audience won't know this, but just I think when I sort of put out a post looking for guests, and then you was intrigued by it, and then you sort of went through the process of applying it. I was so captivated by your story, because I have to agree when you said about what you've been through and where you are now. It's really important that more and more people hear this story. So just for our audience to check in and sort of get to know a little bit about what it is that you do now, let us know.
Yeah, so my name's Adrian Hancock. I'm really fortunate to be the owner of a group company, Clear Technology Group, that I've built up since I founded it in 2010. I spent the first 10, 12, 13 years working with backside, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80 hour, 90 weeks, whatever was needed. And then that transition into becoming what I call a strategic business owner over the last sort of 18 months, 2 years. So I've really been able to change the way that I live my life, the way that I impact my health, and the fun things that I get to do on the side as well.
So this is good. Obviously, we'll sort of captivate this, and it'll be clearer to the guys listening in and watching this back. But when did you sort of have that feeling, Adrian, that you wanted to be a business owner? Where did that start?
Do you know what? It goes back to being a kid. I had a car washing round when I was about 12 years old, right? I was washing cars for £1 a go in like 1984. And a pound was money, right? And I used to get notes, not coins. So I'd always had some kind of entrepreneurial spirit. I was always doing lots of different things when I was younger. And then at some point I kind of got lost along the way. I left school in Manchester in 1989. So all through the 90s was an interesting time in Manchester to live and grow up and have some fun. And so I travelled a lot. I lived in different parts of the country. I'd go and see friends for a weekend and then come back like 9 months later. I got a job working over in Rotterdam. I spent 6-7 months in Rotterdam. I spent time in Spain and Lincolnshire. So I kind of moved around a lot and did a lot of different things. I never really wanted to settle down and get a particularly good job when I was younger. I wasn't motivated by that. I had some family influences that, what I deemed success meant that you became somebody that I didn't actually want to be. So I did the opposite of work hard. I did anything other than work hard. I just, I did enough to have fun at the weekend, and that was about it.
Yeah, this is really good. So it's sort of a mixed bag what I'm getting. Because obviously you've got this entrepreneurial spirit, cleaning cars. I mean, to try and ask somebody to clean cars today for £1, I mean, it would be happening. But the fact that you did that, and then obviously you went off and, like I say, you never thought that you'd be sort of in this business world. If you look back and someone like a friend was looking at you as growing up as a kid, or your parents maybe, what was you like as a kid? What sort of skills and attributes did you have back then?
Do you know what? We moved around a lot. Okay, so and what I mean by that is that it was like, okay, my dad had different jobs, and therefore he was like, okay, we're now moving from. I'm born in Portsmouth. I don't sound like I'm from Portsmouth, right?
No.
So and so it's Portsmouth and High Wycombe and Bristol and then Rochdale and then we kind of settled down there a bit, and then we got moved from Rochdale to Rosendale, and then Rosendale down to Salford. So one of the attributes that I got is I learned how to integrate myself into wherever I was picked up and lifted to. So I was able to adapt to whatever the environment is I needed to be in order to survive and build a friendship group. So I learned to adapt to whatever environment I was in, and it's been a life skill that's been really beneficial, and equally hugely detrimental when I integrated into the wrong parts of that society.
Right. Okay. So we'll go into that, but I think something that is really key here for sort of our audience to check in on is how you've become adaptable, but from such an early age. Because I think with the world that we live in today, it's very easy just to sort of be placed in a box and stay comfortable and let that be sort of day to day. But a lot of the guys listening in here are not wanting that anymore. They're wanting to step out of the norm and try different things. And obviously, you've already said that. I tried lots of different things. I moved everywhere. There were so many pieces to this puzzle that you've already done, even at an early age, which probably most people wouldn't even do maybe till their 40s and 50s. Maybe you don't know. And you just said there about with being adaptable, you got into the wrong crowds as well. So tell us a little bit about that, because obviously moving around and trying to fit in, it must have been really challenging as well.
It didn't feel it at the time, right? Because it happened, wasn't maybe the first time it happened, maybe the second time, but ultimately it just became part of my personality. So wherever I went, I would, ultimately I would be lifted and shifted, and I would drop into a different environment. So it was normal, so it wasn't bad. When I look back at, I'm a 53-year-old man, I look back with a different lens at those things, and have I strived to make sure I didn't have those same impacts on my children? Absolutely, I did. I'm sure I've messed them up in a whole different set of ways. But the key thing is that I look at those things, and at the time there were challenges, but every challenge is a gift. Right, everything. If you effectively blame any environment that you're in and go, right, okay, what was the good and what was the bad? Every bad thing that ever happened to me had a positive outcome at some point. Right, I learned something. I had a valuable lesson. I built some skills. I grew some resilience. Right, all of those things. It helps along the way. So the person that that you're talking to today only exists with all the shit. Excuse me, I don't know if I'm supposed to swear. Apologies.
You can swear.
But if I don't have if I don't have that side of things, I don't get to be me, right? And that's the gift, right? It's and in business, right? I remember my 3rd or 4th year in business was a really, really tough, challenging year, and I learned more in how to run a business in that year than I did in the 3 or 4 before that, or the 7 that I spent helping run someone else's business before that. So, you're going to go through challenges in life. Good. It will make you a better human being.
I really like that piece, especially that way you said, Adrian, thanks for sharing that every challenge is a gift. And I think, obviously, we sometimes get away from that a little bit as we get older and we have more responsibility. That sort of challenge piece in our life sort of to dim a little bit. We just go through the motions of life. If you can recall a moment in your life up to date, what's been the hardest challenge in your life but has actually been the best gift in return?
Oh my God. Hardest challenge but the best gift in return.
If you could pick one.
I'm trying to make it relatable to the audience. But the hardest challenge was quitting a really well paid job. Right, I was earning really good money. I was a director of the business, and my integrity was being questioned over something really stupid and pointless. And I'm upon reflection, we've talked about this afterwards. There was some moodiness on behalf of the other person, and he was kind of taking out on me on this particular occasion, and it just blew up. But I had a 1-year-old son, as well as 3 other children, so I had 4 kids. Right, I've got a really well-paid job, and I fell out with the boss, and I went, I'm going to quit. I'm going to quit today, and I'm going to start my own business. And that was on the 12th of November 2010, 12, 11, 10. And it was 4 o'clock in the afternoon. It was Friday. and I was about to go and meet a client in Warrington, and he's like, "Oh, this appointment's not in your diary." And I was like, I just done like £750,000 worth of sales that month, right, which was a great month. And for some reason, he seemed to choose that moment to question my integrity of whether I'm really going to go to see another client. And I was like, no, I'm not being spoken to like this, right? I know I'm going to an appointment. I've spent 7 years helping you build your business up, and I'm not taking it. And therefore, I handed my notice in there and then. And then I worked my notice. So the next 6 weeks, he was like, "You still got a job? You still got a job?" And I just kept pushing through, and I had absolute certainty that I could make my business work. It was unshakable, and I don't know where that came from. Right?
Yeah, I was going to say, where did that? Yeah,
there was no alternative, right? It's like, I've made you millions of pounds over the last 7 years, right? And if I can do it for you, I can do it myself, and I can do it better. I can do it my way. I can take all the good things that you taught me about how to run a business, and then all the frustrations that I felt with you is, how do I make myself better, right? And how do I run my business better? So yeah, I went into that, and I don't, you can't really see it up there, but I've still got my first ever invoice, right? In a frame. It's £250, which was sent out on the 3rd of February in 2011. And I've maintained that, because that's the day that I'm making money. Want a lot of money, but I was making money, and then it's been 14 years since that. 14 and a half years since that invoice went out the door, and they're a bit bigger these days.
Was it so? This is brilliant. I mean, it's very relatable as well, Adrian, because obviously, I think you said, I don't know where that came from, but if you think about it a little bit more in that question of sort of that desire to have your own business, what was the fuel in the fire to make it happen and go all in on it? Because I know there'd be people listening going today going, I've got that feeling where I'm not happy where I am, but I'm scared. Like, what helped you get through?
You've got 4 kids, you've got a wife, you've got a house, a mortgage, right? You don't have a choice, right? But it was like, what was the alternative? The alternative was making somebody, a £750,000 sale, right, across 2 big sales, right, where there was significant margin in those deals. That guy made a lot of money out of the back end of it, and and then I'm being questioned. I mean, even if I was lying about going to the pub, right, it should. I'm going, and to be quite honest, I've got more integrity. If I was going to leave early on a Friday afternoon, I'm just going to say, yeah, I've done my quota for the next 6 months, mate. I'm off. But I'm not being. And this was not a one-off occasion. Do you know what I mean? It was like, it was just the level of uncertainty. That there was some friction, because I would turn up. I would work really, really hard for someone else and make them a lot of money, and he paid me well, right? And I did get a lot of latitude. But there were just some things, and I was like, I don't want to be spoken to like this. I want to be the boss. I want to be the person that's making those decisions. I spent 6 months, so this is back in 2008, building a cloud-based video conferencing platform in 2008, before anyone else even knew what the concept of it was, right? I built a service level agreement. I built the infrastructure. We were delivering it. We were selling it to customers. I went on holiday for 2 weeks, and when I came back, I'm like, some of my infrastructure's down. What's gone on? And he took it out the rack and lent it to somebody. And I'm like, you can't run a business like this. This is not what you do. And so that felt an undermining. So like I said, there were just a few of these different things that happened. And then it just got to the point, it was like, no, screw this. I'm going to do this. And I absolutely will make it work.
Yeah, I think this is a bit more context, which I appreciate you sharing. So there's obviously not just been one occasion, like you said, where someone's questioning your integrity. It was a build-up of sort of things. It was sort of like a little jab here, a little jab there. And then you got to that point where you built the evidence on what you'd already achieved and thought, actually, do you know what would happen on the other side of this if it was to work out, rather than
yeah, absolutely. And and he, at the end of the day, he also owed me a big commission check, right? And that big commission check helped along the way, right? I'm not, that's a multi-5-figure commission check that I will be due over the next few months. So that, it gave me some stability and some certainty that I could survive over the next few months, no matter what. But yeah, obviously, I've got a mortgage, I've got 4 kids. You can imagine the conversation I have with my wife. But she, we're not together anymore, but she was very supportive at the time. And yeah, it was. And once I'd made the decision, it's done. I'm like, okay, there is no turning back. There was no turning back.
This is great, and like in terms of like no turning back, what gave you that sort of reassurance that you was never going to go back in starting your business?
Belief in myself. And it's pure and simple. Like I said, I've picked up and dusted off and been dropped in different places, and wherever I end up, it's always all right. Life's always all right, right? It is. It's like it's shit sometimes, but it's always going to be all right in the end. And as long as you keep your eye on that, there were times it wasn't all right, okay, but I knew it was going to be all right. And I just having that indefatigable belief that no matter what, the universe isn't out to get me. Life isn't like that. It's do the work, the results will come. Do the work, the results will come. Do the work, the results will come. And when you stack that on top of each other over a period of time, the results come, and then the results get better, right? And so the first couple of years were really tough. The first year was tough. It was tight financially. I paid myself a very minimal salary to get by. I was driving, this was like 2010. I'm driving an X-Reg Ford Galaxy. Big Bertha, her name was, right? So this big old green people carry. Obviously, we had 4 kids. But it's great because I could strip the seats out of this, and then I could put a load of stuff in it. So I could actually go and turn it into a van, right? So, I did some miles in that. I turned up at some customers in this battered old green, metallic green, steam coming out of it at times. But it got me by. And yeah, that, I think, for me, it's always going to be all right. I believe that it's going to be all right, and therefore it is always going to be all right. And whatever's going to happen, it's going to happen anyway. So don't stress over it.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's great that you've obviously got these reflection points as well on where you used to be, especially you sharing there about that first invoice in a frame. I think that's brilliant. It's a memory. You're going down memory lane on that first transaction, that first moment where someone has trusted you to help them out in some way. And obviously it's gone so different now. Like I say, you send out larger invoices now, but I think it's just about that moment of, we all start somewhere. The first couple of years were tough. Obviously, you definitely had a drive in you because you had 4 kids. Obviously, it was tough. You was paying yourself minimum salary to sort of get by. Was there ever a moment though in those years of hardships, Adrian, that you didn't think that you was good enough, that you felt that there might have been a moment of giving up or going back, or was it always just, I've got this?
The imposter syndrome, I'm not good enough. Listen, that never goes away completely, no matter where you are in life, right? Because all that happens is that as we grow, we get bigger problems, and then we have to overcome those bigger problems, right? So it still sits there and goes, am I really that person, right? So that never goes away 100%, ever, right? Even coming on to have this conversation with you, where I'm sitting and go, what does anyone give a shit about hearing my story for, right? So, I just went and had a little talk with my fiance, and we just said, okay, we're going to go and do it. So, one of the things that I've learned in life is Maybe I'll share about this later, but wherever you are in life, right, you can always add value to that room. And if you take that into a room, whatever that room is, and go, right, someone in this room I can add value to, but equally someone in this room can add value to me, that makes you really open and vulnerable. Because if I can share some part of my story that someone else can connect with, hopefully, and if I lead, they will also open up and be vulnerable back with me, and they will give me a gift in some description. And so, yeah, did I ever have any doubts? Of course I did, but they're fleeting, they're momentary, and I don't listen to that voice.
Yeah, I think that's yeah.
I hear the voice, but I don't take it credence. It's like, we'll see.
Yeah.
I think my best.
Yeah, I think you've got a very good mindset, Adrian. You know, with regards to the way you approach, the way you're articulating these scenarios now as well is very clear to see that it's like, okay, this is going to happen, or this might happen, but it will do its thing. But something will come from it anyway, such as a value piece. Just people hearing this might think the same, such as like, where did this mindset develop? You know, where did you sort of gain these tools? Is there anything that you can share on that?
Yeah, well, it cost a lot of money. Right, I did a lot of training.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah, but fair enough.
Yeah, and so and it's quite difficult because I have spent a lot of money on mindset training. I've done a lot with Tony Robbins and people like that, and so I'm looking back at my life with a different lens than I actually had on at the time. And it's really easy to have like the rose tinted glasses on and go, yeah, of course, I've always been this way. But there will have been dark times, there will have been dark moments, but you just have to push through them, right? And just back yourself, believe in who you are, and whether you think you can or whether you think you can't, you're right. Right, you're always going to be right. If you think you can't do it, you're right. You can't do it. You're not, because you're going to give up because you don't believe in yourself. Right. So it's surround yourself with the right people, hear the right voices, and work on that. But yeah, I spent a lot of time working with Tony Robbins. I've worked with business coaches. So I think I started working with my first business coach about 10 years ago. So about 5 years into actually owning a business was the first time I actually engaged with a business coach. I've just done it all my way up until that point. And, God knows I made some mistakes, right? My frame of reference was my old boss did this and I hated that, so we're not doing that, right? But he also did that and that made him a lot of money, so we're doing that. So that my frame of reference was the 7 years that I spent working for Ian, right, and what did I like and dislike about it, and I used those tools to implement it. Then, my wife and I separated in 2015, and then, so I've got this reasonably successful business, and I'm accountable to no one. When you're in a relationship, right, you've got a level of accountability, and you've also got someone that can see and hear and be a trusted voice, to be a sounding board for. And then all of a sudden, it's like, do what I want, and no one can say anything. And actually, so that was the first time. And I was working with one of my clients, a guy by the name of Richard Pennington, and they had 4 directors in the business, and he just turned around to me, and I was under a lot of stress at the time, and he said to me, he said, you don't have anyone to talk to. He went, he said, we've got 4 of us as directors, we get to grow our business together, and you're on your own. He said, I really suggest you find somebody that you can lean into. And that led me to finding my first sort of business coach, a guy called Paul Winterbottom. And he gave me some structure around long-term and medium-term planning. He gave me a voice in a monthly session where we get to connect on a one-on-one basis. And then monthly we were in a room together with a group of peers, other owner directors in a similar boat where there's one owner and a company, and it just gave us a bit of a collective voice to work together, and that was really valuable. That was the start of the transformation.
Okay, so I'm just sort of capturing this business journey of yours where first 4 or 5 years, you were sort of doing it your way. And then you sort of then looked at investing in mentorship and coaching to sort of take you to that new level, the transformation, probably some things that you didn't see. It's just so people may, I'm not saying their journey will be the same, but they might be able to relate or might think about how does this all work, because business is completely new to them. In regards to your investment, because I think the word investing is obviously kind of thrown around a lot in the business world. From your experience, what's been the best investment you've made?
Specifically in business,
Yes.
The investment in myself, in my own personal self-development. And here's the thing, right? Is if you, and I coach other people now, so I help other business owners, and people will talk about their ambitions that they want. In 10 years' time, I see my business doing this, and it's going to be all this amazingness. And I'm great. Where do you live? What does your life look like? Right? And they go, oh, I don't know. So, well, if you don't marry those two things up, right, you're going to have a massive disconnect, right? So if you've got an ambition of this multi-million-pound company that does all this thing, and then you still think you see yourself living in a 2-up, 2-down terrace house, not that there's anything wrong with that, but there's a huge disconnect, right? And you have this thermometer in your brain that's going to go, that's not who I am. So you will self-sabotage and you will take your business back down to a level that is more in par. So I invested a huge amount of money working with Tony Robbins. I joined his platinum partnership. I've traveled the world. I've done 4 UPWs, 3 Date with Destinies, 5 business masteries and business mastery 2s. I've done his leadership program. I've done life and wealth mastery in Fiji. I did 13 events in 12 months. In his platinum partnership, I'm hanging around with millionaires and billionaires, okay? And it just gave me a different way of thinking, right? And when I signed up for joining that program, I was earning the amount the program cost, right? And I didn't know how I was going to actually fund it. Okay, but I just knew that this is something. It was like take myself and put myself in a different surrounding, and this comes back to what I talked about as a child. This is the gift that my childhood gave to me, right? If no matter where I went, I learned how to integrate myself into that environment. So now, and I put myself in some shitty rooms with low standards, and then I went, where's the best possible room I can go? And I put myself into this room of people that I saw so far above me in their standard of living, in the way that they conduct themselves as human beings. And I learned to elevate. I learned to not, I had 3 coaching sessions just to go in the first session, right? Just to and to get right, how do I show up, right? And we nailed it down to being authentic, to being real, and just living life, right? And curious. That was the third one, right? So I just had to show up in this room with those traits in order to be who I really am, rather than trying to show off and putting on a bravado face to be in there. You're like, just go in there and be curious. Go in there, be authentic. And I learned stuff and I elevated. And the best thing that I get is that there was an AI mastermind and somebody taught me some AI stuff and I implemented it in my business and it was really valuable. It was super helpful and added some real value to that business at the time. And the guy that ran that, I saw him out in Dallas in November 23, and I just to thank him, and I just signed up for this platinum partnership program, and I wanted to ask him how I get the most out of this program I'm going to be in. How do I get the most from it? And his response to him, it was, don't try and get anything out of it. Just find out what you can give, because if you give, you'll get back so much more. And I'm thinking, I'm this 2-bit business owner from Manchester, and I've got these millionaires and billionaires, right, from around the world, including like the CEO of Salesforce and all these, right, like big stuff. And I'm like, how the hell do I add value to these lot? I don't know. And I was like, fine. And then on that day, Tony's on stage and he's doing his talking, and he cracks a joke about taking everybody skydiving. And I was like, yeah, that sounds like a good fun. We'll do that. I've never done skydiving. And he goes, oh, I'm only kidding. He went, but some of you have gone, yes, that's brilliant. I'm like, yeah, I did. And then some of you have gone, that sounds frigging horrendous. We're not doing that. Right. But I was like, yeah, okay, so this is it. So there's some WhatsApp communities, and I sent a message into the WhatsApp community. I am going to go skydiving, right? I'm going to go I found a skydiving center just outside of Dallas. I went, I'm going here on this day. Who wants to come? And I took 7 people skydiving with me, right? A couple of older ladies, right? And afterwards, she came up to me and went, thank you, you've changed my life. I've been afraid of flying all these years, right? And then you gave me this opportunity. So I just really wanted to say thank you. So by me saying thank you to Doug, someone else has come up and said thank you to me, right? So then I went, okay, well, this is something I can do. So when we went back to Florida like 3 weeks later for his Date with Destiny program, I took 13 people skydiving. And then we had a finance program in Whistler in Canada in the February. And I was like, well, I want to go cat skiing. So, and heli skiing and stuff like that. So I got 26. Again, I'm going to go for 5 days before this trip, and I'm going to stay in these Airbnbs. Who wants to come? And I got 26 people from around the world coming and staying. We ended up getting 3 big beach houses at the bottom of the slopes, and we went. Well, we couldn't go cat skiing because the snow wasn't very good on that particular occasion. But we went tobogganing and we did normal skiing. We hung out. We did some networking. We really connected. We had a Wim Hof leader called John who was there, and he was doing breathing exercises. We had ice cold plunges on that thing, and we just had this 5-day pre-Tony Robbins experience. And I built a network of friends from that event. That I went to Dubai early this year. And I rocked up on the day, and I put into this community, who wants to come for dinner? I'm in a country I've never been to before, and 12 people came and had dinner with me, right? And 3 of them were people that had been in Whistler, right? But they happened to be in Dubai at the time. So that's how I added value to this. I wasn't going to add business value at that point in time. I added adventure, right? That was the thing that I brought.
I think that's probably like one of the golden pieces already, like the treasure there. Just what that guy said to you in that moment when you was like, what can I get the most out of this program? And that simple sort of thing where it's just focus on what you can give has completely changed the trajectory of how you are in business, probably what you bring. I mean, that adventure piece probably so like that lady there just saying, oh, Adrian, I've always wanted to do this, and you're the person that's helped them do that. It's crazy how just putting those signals out, people can just step up. Like, it just shows you how much people want to do things but are a little bit not sure what to do. Yeah. But you just, rather than you going, I want to get something out of you, you're just like, no, let's do this together. Let's jump out of a plane.
It was wild. And the funny thing is that I organised this the skiing trip, and there's this guy. I'm going to call him John. I'm not going to go into too much detail, but we talked when I arrived. We talked, and I'd had some checkered history in my life, and we connected, and he told us some about his story, and we had a real connection about it. But when I'd actually met him the first day, it was like, what do you do? He's like, I build houses for the rich and famous in California. It was like, he just took an order for a $50 million house build, right? And he's got a Fortune 500 CEO running his company, right? And I'm like, wow, these are the kind of people that I'm meeting. I'm so nervous. And it was fascinating. We had lunch on one day, and he told me how nervous he was of meeting me. And I was like, what? You are literally a rock star in the rock star world. You're doing all this incredible stuff. And why are you meeting me? He said, you're this British guy that brings all these people from around the world together. Right? And he's like, so I was nervous of meeting you. And it just gave me that realization, right? We're all carrying the same bullshit stories around in our head, right? So every single person that's listening, whenever you walk into a networking room or a business meeting or whatever, everyone's nervous, and it's bullshit. It's a thing that we tell ourselves, right? Because we've got really 50 times more fear receptors in our brain than we do like good receptors. So we're terrified of stuff all the time. It's what kept us alive when the saber-toothed tigers were around. Well, there aren't any now. So now we make up these stories in our head about that we should be fearful. And that was the best gift, you know. So the gift I got from that was just that realization that we're all the same, and we've all got the same bullshit stories, and we just get to choose not to listen to it.
Yeah, that's nice that you shared that, Adrian, because obviously we can be intimidated by people, you know, again, that imposter syndrome, intimidation, because they've got this big title, this big status of Fortune 500 CEO, and, you know, I guess, like you just said, we're all human, right? We all have the same feelings. We all carry like the same things. So just by you being around these, you know, and in your head, you would probably like, oh, wow, these people are like, oh my God, I can't even believe I'm in a room with these people. What was the biggest thing that you've taken away from it and then put into your business or implemented?
For me, it's the concept of being a strategic business owner. Like I say, I went from working 50, 60, 70, 80, 90, 100 hours a week, right? It was like I did everything. I led from the front. There was not a part of my business that I wasn't in control of, that I didn't understand. The finances, the nuances, the sales, the delivery piece of it, everything went through me. And what an ego trip that was. Right? I thought I was doing so freaking amazing, that I'm the best of this and I'm the best of that. I was the only person that could do all these things because I was the only person that was allowed to. Right? The truth of the matter is that as soon as I stepped out of the way, so I learned the concept of being a strategic business owner in January 2023. Before that, I didn't understand it. So the first 13 years of owning my business, I had an employee mindset. My employee mindset is I get up to work at 9 o'clock in the morning and I think, you know, it's like I work that, and then because I'm a business owner, I get to do extra hours as well. So I'm an employee first and then I'm an owner afterwards, right? And it's like, and I just learned that a business owner does not have to work in the business because they own it. And I'm like, okay, that sounds fun. And so the next sort of 7 to 10 months were built around, right, how do I go from my operator owner, which is what I am, to a strategic owner, and how do I take myself out of the business, right? Where are the decision making? You know, who's ultimately responsible for making these decisions? And, you know, it got to the stage, I had a good team, I had some great people working for me already. I was really lucky, right? And they bought in with I get to do this now, and I get to tell you to bugger off. Yeah, all right, okay, they like that. So then all that, but I learned that I don't make no mistakes, right? If I make a mistake, the thing is I own it, and it costs me money, and therefore I put it right afterwards. So I looked at it and went, so I don't. If I'm not perfect, then no one else has to be perfect, so they can make mistakes. So what's the ratio? Right, so I was like, is it 6 or 7? Right, sorry for the meme. But yeah, so, and I was like, okay, well, let's say it's 7 out of 10. So if somebody's making good decisions 7 out of 10 times, and then they learn from the 3 times they get wrong, then they're going to get better and better and better. And as long as they own it and deal with the mistake and respond to it accordingly. So that's what I did. And then different people stepped up into the leadership team. And now every single person in their individual jobs is way better at their jobs than I ever was. Every single one of them. Because they're in the lane. They're really focused on that. That's what they do. Right? Could any of them do all the different things that I did at the same time? Maybe one, possibly two. Right? In fact, I'm going to say one could, definitely. Because she actually now runs my company for me. Right? But equally, she's got a leadership team of people that are in their lane. So we've got a specialist in finance, we've got a specialist in delivery and operations, we've got a specialist in sales, a specialist in marketing. They lead their individual, and what she does is she just makes sure that cohesively they deliver to the plan of the business. So, like I say, that period, that 7 to 10 month period of enabling that team to become a leadership team, that then gave me the so my journey was, I did Date with Destiny in 2022, December 22, with Tony Robbins. I decided that I wanted to change my life completely, and the chaos that I used to seek, right, didn't serve me. So I needed to find how to feed the chaos, but in a healthy way. And I'll touch more about that later. Then I did the business mastery, where I learned the strategic business ownership. I did UPW in the July of 23 in the UK, and that's where I signed up for the Platinum Partnership, right? Which meant that I was in Hawaii in October, Dallas in November, Florida in December, Portugal in January, Canada in February. I stayed in the UK in March, April, and May. I should have gone to New Zealand, but I was buying a house, so I didn't go. Then I was in Florida again. Then I was in Portugal again. So I was just traveling around the world, and I was out of the business for 3 to 4 months of that year. And therefore, the team that I'd enabled them to run the business, and I bear in mind I could barely afford this program when I joined it, right? But the team was so much better at running the business than I was as a collective, that actually I made way more money than I ever had done before, right? And it's because I allowed people to be their brilliant selves.
See, that's I've obviously in the business world, I'm quite familiar with this sort of, people being the bottleneck in the business, like say business owner trying to own everything of the business. And obviously you've delegated, you've brought in the team, and like say you've let them stay in the lane and excel. Where did that sort of come from for you to go, right? Because obviously you'd invested all this money. It was probably a fear must have come in at some stage where you go, maybe I'm going to be able to pay for this. I'm going to keep the business going. But you still travel to all these different places, while still letting your business run, with other people sort of in charge. So I just wondered where that feeling came from to just let it go.
Well, do you know what? I've kind of missed a step out here a little bit. And if we go back to March 2020, when COVID struck, that was obviously a transformation for many businesses. And as we were furloughing the different team members, and I think we were down to myself and 4 other people, right? And these are like leaders in the team now. And I'm like, okay, I can furlough that person because I can do that job. I'll furlough that person because I can do their, and I went through the 4 roles. I went, I could furlough any one of these and I can step into doing their job. And I went, can't be asked. I was exhausted. I've spent 10 years at this point building up my company, and we're a video conferencing company, right? My mission since 2001 has been about getting people to use video conferencing, something I was super passionate about, and it was my driver. And then COVID came along, and Zoom gave it all away for free, right? And said everyone can have Zoom for free, and everyone's at Zooming at home, and they achieved my mission. They achieved my mission. It's like all of a sudden that mission to that drive was no longer there, and I was tired and I was exhausted, and we just needed to tick over. We just needed to service our existing customers. So people needed to tick over, and I was like, do you know what? I'm just going to check out, and that's what I did. I got really good at making cocktails. Really good at espresso martinis, porn stars, amazing. And I did. I just went off and had a party for the next 6 months, and let the business tick over, which they did really well. And actually, the team did fantastically well. So I did come back into the business, and so I started working again back in September, when we needed to start ramping things back up. But that I had a lesson in that 6 months, that actually the team could do could function without my without day-to-day input from me. So then when it came to the strategic business owner decision in 2-3 years later, I had some proof. I did have some proof that helped me make that decision 100%.
Yeah, I'm glad you went back to that bit actually, because that does clear it up. Obviously, 2020 was a hard, unprecedented time for most. But obviously for you, there was a gift in that. Where you've spoken about a bit of evidence to carry through with you that, oh, hold on a minute, I can go and party hard and have my espresso martini fun and fun style martini fun and still actually see something at the end of it. I mean, you've said this quite a lot actually. I think the theme that I'm taking from this is that you could go through these hard moments, you could go through these moments of like where it doesn't seem like things are moving or progressing, but actually there's still a gift if you keep, like, you're still moving in some way, but in your mind, you feel like nothing's changing, but actually it is.
Of course it is. And here's the thing with just because you don't see something changing, that means you're not trying hard enough. If there isn't something changing, then it's really down to an internal thing. Steadiness is required sometimes. I'm really shit at that. That's not my vibe, right? So for me, everything needs to be moving and growing and changing on a constant basis. Again, that's the gift of all the having to move as a child, that constant moving and changing. Now I don't get to settle down, right? So what was very difficult for me in the early years of business is that I was super focused, and the job was the same, right? As that business matured, it got harder to be the fulfilling, because you're not getting as much chaos. Because in order to grow a business, you actually need to put systems and order in place, which again I'm not very good at. It's not my vibe, right? I'm very much of right. What needs to change? Where do we need to go? Where's the new ideas? Where's the new blood? So for years, my driver was, oh, let's go and do this, and let's go and do that, and let's go and do that. And my team couldn't keep up with me, right? And it was like, oh, well, I can do this. Their change of direction was really frustrating for them. So now I'm not allowed to do that. My team, I'm not allowed to have those ideas. My job is to come up with ideas, right? And I hand them to the leadership team, and they choose which one's actually going to get implemented, not me. And I'm not allowed to. I don't have the veto vote. So Rebecca, who runs my company for me, she has the veto vote.
Yeah, obviously a lot's changed in your life, in your business. You've got to this stage. Obviously, it's like you said, you've sort of built these systems. You've become a strategic business owner. Obviously, you've been on both sides. You've seen what it's like to work 7 to 8 to 90 hours. Just to go on to that bit here, Adrian, obviously, this is, I think, where a lot of people, and I know some of the audience has sort of checked in with us on this, is that they're fearing that jump from employment to self-employment because they think they're going to be working more, having their own business, than they are being employed. When really the reason that you leave an employed role to go self-employed or to have your own business, to have the freedom, right? Obviously, you've now started to create that, but it's like, what would you share on that, or what would you say to somebody if they was like going, yeah, I just feel like I've got kids, I don't want to be just working all the time, but I'm scared because I feel like I'm just going to be working, like I say, hustling.
Here's the thing: when I started my own job, company, and I said my wife was really supportive at the time. If I'm honest, I conned her because I told her that, I get to be in charge of my diary. I've like right. And the truth of the matter is it took years for that to come into fruition, because I took my employee mindset into the business. Right, I've got to lead from the front. I've got to be the business owner. I have to be, and so if you're going to start your own business, you have to set your boundaries about what that's going to look like. The thing is, it's difficult because you've got to succeed first, right? In order to be in business, you have to be in business. You've got to be making money. You have to be profitable, and so you need to be really clear on what that means, right? What amount of money can you look at? What sacrifices, what commitment can you put into it on a financial point? And then you've got to look at, what are you actually prepared to sacrifice, right? Is it sports day, right? Is it Christmas play? Is it tucking your kids up in bed and reading a bedtime story. In my first sort of year, I was doing some consultancy work down at Great Ormond Street Hospital in London. I commuted to London and back every day. Right, I got the train at 7 o'clock in the morning. I arrived in Euston at 9. I did a full day's work. I got on the 5 o'clock train home, and then I would walk through the door at 7:30, pick the kids up, put them in bed. I read a bedtime story to them, spent half an hour with them, and I put them in bed. Right, and then I went to bed, and and that was rinse and repeat. Right, because I wasn't prepared to sacrifice that relationship building with my kids. But equally, I didn't get to do the sports days all the time. I didn't see some of the Christmas plays, and these were moments that But when I worked for my former employer, I also missed those things because that was a requirement in order to succeed in the job that I had. Right? I took that mindset into my own business. Right? The truth of the matter is, I actually was in control of my diary, and all I had to do is go, can't do that day. Sorry, Mr. Customer, it's not available. But you think that you have to service the customer to your detriment, and you don't. You tell me I can't do that. I'm already booked somewhere, right? You've got other clients. You don't have to tell them what it's for, right? And just be really clear about what you are prepared to sacrifice and what you're not, and then you're the person that makes that decision.
Yeah, that's brilliant. Because you feel sort of, I mean, obviously people, if you're starting your own thing, it's your baby, you know, you're super passionate about it. You may feel obligated that, you know, if somebody's on the other end and they're exchanging some money, and obviously because it's your thing, you're like, oh my gosh, like you said, that first excitement of that first invoice, but actually you've shared there about what are you willing to sacrifice, and actually you are in charge of your own destiny in decision making when you have got your own business, and when you are obviously accountable to, you know, your boss or your director, they can sort of have a bit of a say in the matter because they're the ones that are giving you a wage packet.
Yeah, and it's interesting because the workplace is very different today than it was 15 years ago, right? Because of COVID, because of the work from home, it's actually not missing out on these things is really quite easy. You know, it's quite easy now because, you know, I'm going to work from home that day and I'm going to go and spend an hour at my kids' place. And most employers will go, okay, that's, you know, it's not an unreasonable request. I'll make up the hours at lunch or whatever. So yeah, I think the workplace today is different than 15 years ago. But it's not being an employee in your business. This is the key thing. It's like, so in October 24, I got rid of my desk at the workplace. I no longer have a desk at the office. I don't have a place of work there. What I used to feel guilty that my desk was empty because I wasn't there. Right? So I simply removed the desk and I stopped feeling guilty. Right? The impact is the same, right? Because you know, people are looking at my desk, they've got to go to work and all the rest. No, they're doing their job, they're getting a wage for it, right? Equally, I'm having a lot of fun and I'm doing some fun stuff. But I also still work, right? This is my home office. You know, this is my centre of operations. I've got a lot of things going on. I imagine if I was just posting on Instagram, doing loads of all this stuff all the time, things might be a little bit different. But I think I respect them to do their jobs, and I think they respect me to give them the latitude to do it, and you know, to make the decisions that I make on a daily. I do make decisions on a daily basis, but on a much bigger scale than I used to.
Yeah. So well, I mean, I think we've achieved, Adrian, what you've shared here. Obviously, there's a lot of things that you've been through that you've learned along the way. Like you said, the challenges, the gifts in return. You know, just to sort of like conclude this piece for our audience, what sort of message or statement, anything that you would want our audience to sort of take away from this piece that we've just been talking about?
Two things. If you're not in business, you're deluding yourself. We are a business, right? So the only difference is that at the moment you're in business, and if you're employed, you've got one client, and that one client can fire you. right? When you become self-employed and you might work as a contractor for a few different clients, then you've de-risked a little bit, but you're still trading time for money, right? When you have a business with a team of people that are doing work, now you're getting paid for what goes on in your brain, the decisions you're making, and you're no longer trading your time for money. And that's the journey that you need to go on, right? And then the next step, right? So there's a business owner, an operator, and then you become the investor. You know, I own my business. I work 8 hours a month on that business. I attend a board meeting for 4 hours once a month, and I spend 1 hour working on a one-to-one with my managing director to make sure we're on the same page about what the strategic vision is, are we achieving our business objectives, does she need any support in any areas, and half the time we chew the fat about stuff that we have shared interest in. But that's 8 hours a month to run this group of companies. So it's, if you're employed, you are still in business, but you've got one client and you're at risk. If you're self-employed and you're a contractor, you've got multiple clients, that's great, but you're still trading time for money. If you're a business owner, you're now starting to leverage your decision and thinking rather than your time. But then the next stage is that move to a strategic business owner where you've got an investor mindset. So it's, your time does not have any input on the outcomes of your finances, right? It's how good you are at investing in that business. So that's a transition, whether you're already employed or whether you're already in business.
And I take it then, this is good. So I take it where you are, then you're more now where you are in business and life is the investor sort of mindset.
100%. So, you know, I have been able to take profits from the business. I've invested in real estate. I've got holiday lets. I've got buy to lets. You know, and any investment, my investments now need to not create me a job, right? No point in leaving one job and giving myself another one. So I've got properties. I've got an executive assistant who helps me maintain and manage all of that, so I don't have to do things on a daily basis. My fiance gets involved in this as well. She's been able to leave her employment in the last 12 months and support me and get involved in the journey as well. I've started buying other companies now, right? So I started on a mergers and acquisition journey. It was fascinating. I grew my company to this much over 13, 14 years, and then I increased it by 50% overnight, right? By acquiring a company, right? And I didn't use any of my own money to buy that company, right? So again, I got a coach. I got someone else who showed me how to do it faster and better. So I bought another company. I'm in negotiations at the moment with 3 or 4 other companies that will quadruple the size of the group that I've already got, right? And a wide range of different things. So that's the mergers and acquisition side of things. But again, my key thing is, how do I buy a company that's got a management team? Because I do not want to buy myself a job, right? So some of the tools that I've implemented, so as well as buying businesses, I help other business owners implement the tools that I do. I use Entrepreneur's Operating System as a framework, and I work with very small, you know, less than the fingers on one hand of clients, and I help them go from being a operator to a strategic owner. And I get involved really heavily in their businesses. But again, same framework, 8 hours a month. I don't do any more than that in any one business because I don't need to. But the idea is to help them achieve the same objective. So that's the coaching, the mergers, the properties, obviously the tech companies. And then my new baby at the moment is working in the AI space. So in the AI space, to give you an idea, I've got a business partner based over in the States, a company called Advisory 9, where we educate business owners on how to implement AI systems within the business. To give you an idea, we just built an AI bot for Matt Hall, who does a lot of business coaching stuff, and we helped him build this product, and he was doing a new launch, and for a few $1,000s of what we created for, he got over £200,000 worth of income, right, off something, and it took us like 2 weeks to put together. right? So we're building world-class AI systems as well. But it's about, we believe that you've got to educate business owners. You can't just delegate AI. You need to understand it so you can understand what the context is in your own life, right? Whether you're in an employee working for yourself, right? You should be on Claude or ChatGPT. You should be understanding how to integrate all these different tools, how voice agents work, how chatbots work. Every business owner needs to understand it so that they can implement it in their own team. Within my tech group now, we have an AI task force, and there's a representation from someone in each department. We set a quarterly goal at the end of March for, we wanted to identify 3 core AIs that would benefit our business, and one of them had to be live by the 23rd of June, which is our next quarter meeting. 3 were identified, 3 are already live. It's already saving us £10,000 a month.
Wow.
In subscriptions for software that we've been able to replace using our own AI, by reducing the workload for our goods in operation. So we take goods in and instantly it's populated and put through all of our CRM system, and our stock allocation is all done. It's wild what we've achieved in a really short time frame. We're now taking those tools, the clients that I'm working with on it from a coaching perspective. We're building AI reporting agents that take inspection reports from the inspectors who are traveling the country, and then they leave site. They now upload their notes into the AI agent. By the time they get to the hotel, the report's already written, right? They used to they used to work 2-3 hours a night into the evening to write the reports. It's now done for them, and they just need to technically check them, right? So what it's all about, improving the efficiency within these businesses in a safe and secure manner, right? There was a story a few weeks ago about a company, it's a manufacturing company, and they allowed an AI agent into their production database, and it deleted it all.
Oh,
and it
wow.
killed their business overnight, dead, because all of a sudden they didn't have any data of how to actually manufacture what they manufactured, and no backup data for it. So, you can do AI yourself, and there are some things you should do and you should get involved in. But Advisory 9, we really focus on how do we, and I've got it up on here, how do we empower business leaders with AI and scalability? So Rebecca leads the AI education piece, and I focus on the scalability and implementing systems, not systems, because more the frameworks with how to operate business really effectively.
Yeah. So just to understand a bit deeper on this, then, who is your ideal client then with this?
Anybody with a business, right? Because so Matt Hall is a business coach, right?
Right.
So if you're a solopreneur coach with a number of clients, we can create an AI bot that's a true representation of yourself. That when any of your teachings are out there, we can then make your teachings available 24/7 on behalf of your client base, right? Which is phenomenal. So the Macbot, which is what Matt Hall uses, which is just incredible. Equally, I've got a multi-million-pound tech company, and we're building AI agents for goods in. We're building AI agents within the marketing thing. We just built. We had a meeting last night. Actually, we went for dinner. We had some steak and we drank some wine, right? But we were talking about this. We built an AI agent that looks at all the flow through a marketing. We'll call it a funnel, but everyone's a bit tired of funnels, right? But it's like the flow of data through the different touch points of the leads, and we've now got an AI agent that sits there, and it goes, right, well, you change the header on this Google page over here, and the impact on the flow with this, and this, and it's able to track. So we're actually going to call it something along the lines of laminar flow. So we're still a work in progress. My son came up with that idea. It's genius. But it really, what it does is it dials down all the way through every touch point within a business, and it's going into your Google Analytics, and it's going into all these, the different things, and it's bringing it up into one consolidated piece of information that's going to help a business with its marketing. So we're super excited about what that's going to deliver for ourselves, but also all of our clients as well.
Yeah, I mean, I can tell anyway, Adrian, it's great, mate, what obviously AI can do, but the way that you're sort of talking about things to look out for, and I'm sure the advancements and where you're going with it, you can tell you're obviously very, very passionate about it as well. Unfortunately, my friend, we are towards the end of this episode. I feel like there's been so much gold nuggets sort of taken away from me, even me, being the host on this show, and I'm sure so many people will relate and have sort of taken a lot away from it. I want to ask you there's two more questions, but one being the one that I do ask every guest on the show. It'd be great to hear your perspective. So, Adrian, what does mastering your life mean to you?
Today, just be your best version of you today. Right, it's really simple. Right, when you look at yourself in the mirror, love that person. And when you do that, I was 50 years old before I looked in the mirror and said, "Wow, I actually love who you are." Right,
Really?
that's mastering.
Wow.
That's
Yeah.
mastering life. Right, and you can look at yourself and go, "I effing love you." Right, and that'll do.
Yeah, I like that. But I've not heard that before, if I'm honest, on this show. I mean, we're about 127 episodes in or something like that of recording of this, and that was really good. I actually do like that one a lot, to be honest with you, Adrian. I really think that's a good way of sharing your perspective on it. So look, if anyone's here is just sort of wanting to find out more about your journey and what it is that you do, and just keep up to date, where's the best place that they can follow or connect with you?
Probably on LinkedIn. Find me on LinkedIn. That's probably where you'll get, because I've got so many different profiles. Social media doesn't really work for me because I'm like, oh, which story am I talking about today? LinkedIn, I get to use that consistently. But equally, adrianhancock.com is kind of there. It's got some basis on it. It's kind of a work in progress at the moment. But yeah, find me on social media, connect, and if you've got any questions, I'd be more than happy to answer.
I really appreciate that. I hope some of the guys who are listening to this, wherever they're listening, will reach out to you, because I think, just what you shared today, there's a lot of nuggets there, especially a lot of things that would help people along, definitely in their business journey. And we'll just make sure that those links go in the show notes, they're clickable, so people can easily find you. But look, final thing from me, Adrian, it's been an absolute pleasure, and I appreciate this time that you spent with us today.
Well, Luke, thank you very much for having me, and I hope someone out there has had some benefit from it.